for these 3 days. It's going to be a fun event. We're going to have lectures with panels. We have 3 main projects also to work on for the Mapathon, and I'm excited to get this going. So I think we got to go right into the Open Street Map US presentation, and I'd like to hear from Christy what's going on there. Thanks.
Morning, everyone. My name is Trishti, and I'm here with Alex Barth, and we're going to be talking a little bit about OpenStreetMap US. Most of you are familiar with OpenStreetMap, but we are going to do a quick background of what OpenStreetMap is, just so that you have a bit of a background over the next 3 days. And can kind of see how the different players all interact with the mapping. So I wear 2 hats. We're both on the board at OSM US, and I joined this year. I also am a leader for a mapping project at the American Red Cross called Missing Maps. So a lot of my experience in our conversation will be pinging from that Alex's map box as well, and how we bring different things to OpenStreetMap US. The reason our focus for this year for OpenStreetMap US is community and building community. And one of the biggest ways we do that is through Mapathons. And Mapathons, Alex is going to start with the history of it, but they've grown into something that is trendy, where people can do digital volunteering, but it's also a social gathering where people can meet for basically different reasons, whether it's health and fitness, or getting a themed party to map for our country. So there's lots of different reasons that bring people to the table, but it's about growing community, and that's what we want to focus
on. All right. Good morning, everybody. Who here knows OpenStreetMap? Right. Who here has an account of OpenStreetMap.org? Ooh, there's lots of people who can learn something with that. It's great. Who here has an account that has actually edited something on the map? It's actually something on the map. Oh, right. That's great. So this is all stuff that we can all do, right? Like we can all create an account of OpenStreetMap.org and start mapping. And I think this is some of the things we're going to learn today. But let me start first with a little bit of the history of OSM, and I think that fits very well with what we're doing today and talking about Mapathons. It's the Isle of Wight. It's just off of Southampton in the Channel, south of England. And that's like the location of one of the first significant events in the history of OpenStreetMap. In 2006, a couple of students went to that Isle of Wight equipped with GPS devices, and the idea that they're going to map that island, right? Fully in line with their completely crazy idea to map the world together in a Wikipedia-like project, where all they wanted to, all they thought was necessary for mapping the world was some kind of like common repository where people could share their knowledge, right? So they started to go and like create like this map of Isle of Wight, and when they were done, it looked a little bit like this. Not an exactly complete map, but you can see how much progress you can make in only a couple of days. I'll leave it up to you to hit up OpenStreetMap.org, look everything as Isle of Wight, and see how far this has gotten in the meantime, and how much detail you have today on the Isle of Wight. But in short, what people thought is a very, very crazy and impossible idea just a minute ago, to map the world together in an open repository, sharing their knowledge of the world, turned out to be something extremely valuable. Right? And today, this is a data set that is not only something that hobbyists do on their weekends, but it's powering the critical applications, critical missions for the American Red Cross all the way to the companies like Apple. This is what OpenStreetMap looks like. You can go to OSM.org, you'll create an account, you'll switch over to the editor, and you can instantly start editing stuff. It's very self-explanatory. Few people out there probably look at any type of documentation before they actually become a cartographer, a geographer, a mapper, or whatever you want to call it, because we're all like enthusiast mappers, and we picked the nicest word that we want to use for describing what we're doing here as a hobby or as part of it. So you see here, like the online editor, you see that someone that jumps in and just traces a building, right? We'll trace buildings, we'll trace roads, we'll trace water features, anything that's immovable and observable. That's like an animation of like the growth of OpenStreetMap in the last 10 years, like illustrating a little bit what I was saying earlier, right? And how far we've gotten. And you see how like literally country to country like lights up here. And it typically also means that there's actually a community on the ground that cares about things, right? So when things happen, like all of a sudden, like the US is popping up, there were actually people that got together and said, like, look, we have all this US Census Bureau Tiger data, we should be using it in OpenStreetMap and create a basis for us to like start mapping the entire US and updating this into OpenStreetMap.org, and then start to work on top of that data, sharing the knowledge, general global knowledge, and increasing and enriching that data. So over the years, we've gotten to like 2.5 million registered users. That breaks down to about 30,000 people that touch the map and edit the map in a month. It's very good. It's very varied. Like when you look between countries, so you'll have some countries like Germany or the US that are very active. You'll have other countries or parts of the US, for instance, that are much less active. We're looking at about 1,500 monthly contributors in the US. That's great. Yeah, what's next? You want to hop in and like talk a little bit about like the applications, the basic applications?
Yeah, absolutely. So why is it important to have all of this data? So there's a lot of different uses for it. So collecting data is great, but in the end, what happens with that data and how does it affect people's lives? And that's the bottom line. Basically, what I do at the Red Cross is work on OSM full-time in some capacity. And a lot of what we use it for, and we started using it for, is disaster response. So as soon as a disaster strikes, lots of people and different organizations get onto the ground and they want to set up camps and they want to get aid out to the right people. But how do you know where to go? And if you've never been to that country, a lot of the aid organizations that are helping are from different places. And while you might have a sense of the geography, you don't have enough details to be able to know which roads to take and which communities that you need to reach. And that's where the maps are extremely useful. A lot of people, and the trend has been increasing, to go in and volunteer as soon as a disaster happens, so you get thousands of people within a couple of hours adding data. But that's the time to basically coordinate those volunteers is not at the time of a disaster. So we send out people with huge base maps when they get deployed from the Red Cross and different organizations so that they can put it up in camps and basically help get aid to the places as fast as possible. But we realized most of the world isn't mapped. There's no data to begin with in a lot of these really vulnerable areas all across Africa, Asia, and huge parts of Latin America. So basically, we started mapping out pre-mapping areas that we know are vulnerable. And so that means going out into the community and working with projects that are already taking place. So whether it's NGOs or local nonprofits or local government, basically going in and using that data for the projects that they're already working on or the areas they're working on because they have relationships with the community, thereby also adding to OpenStreetMap so it becomes a much fuller map of the world. There are also other users that are not humanitarian in nature, but social media. So Facebook is somebody that also uses OpenStreetMap data. This is an example of Taiwan, and I know they're in 3 other countries as well. Apple, I think some of you might have heard of who they are, but they use OpenStreetMap data as well. And education. So there's a couple of people, and you'll hear about them in the next 3 days, that have introduced open source data and the idea of OpenStreetMap mapping into classes, which is extremely useful because then students are much better prepared when they graduate. They also make great volunteers. I personally love GW because when I need an area mapped really well and validated and pasted, there's some really, really good schools that have now had so many mapathons that their students are really good at tracing. Also Strava, which is a fitness app some of you may have heard of, used OpenStreetMap data for their fitness app because OpenStreetMap has really good outdoor data. National Park Services. While they have really good data within the park, they realized that a lot of the community members and really outdoor enthusiasts started putting data in themselves. And so they started working better with OpenStreetMap to like put community points within the parks, but also to fill in the gaps around the parks where they had no data. So working with local government in that way. The other main thing about OpenStreetMap is that it's extremely powerful because it's accessible to the people. It's something very easy to use. You guys will learn about it today. There's some tabletop guides that show you how to get started, but it's a couple of steps. And the data is extremely structured and it's open, so while there's many ways to add data, there's also many ways to extract data for different uses. So you can basically, if you're needing it for disaster response and want to pull out all the community centers and hospitals, you can do that. If you're collecting trails to create another geo application for a fitness app or something, you can also do that. So you can extract data in a very structured way and create other applications that work for you. And now I'm going to pass it over back to Alex to talk about a little bit about the history of what OpenStreetMap US does, and more of community building.
So at OSMUS, we're what amounts to a chapter organization of OpenStreetMap, right? So our mission is to build and grow a community of mappers in the United States. That's what we focus on, right? So we have a variety of efforts that we're running out, initiatives that we're running out with this, and one of the most important ones probably being our annual safety conferences that we're going to talk about. One of the things on this measure really nice with the topic here today is Mapathons. We call quarterly Mapathons in the United States, where we ask people, communities around the country, to get together and map, right? To sort of celebrate the social part of mapping, to get together and exchange knowledge about local places. Maybe go to neighborhoods that you wouldn't go otherwise because they don't have any special interest, but they are really interested in exploring the map to actually see what's there on the map. So this is an example of mapping the Congressional Cemetery in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago. You can actually see some people who have been on the board of OpenStreetMap US, and their funny garments as people mapping. You don't need to look like this to map with a little more interest, but you can, right? It's fun enough to do that. This would be an example of a Mapathon we call, this is in March. March 8th was the International Women's Day, and the Mapathon we called for that for that day, and this is the mapping party in the American Red Cross. You see a whole bunch of people coming together and mapping on that day. So we're trying to sort of foster this social component around mapping and make this a very inviting place for people to come into this community and sort of find out what mapping can do for them. This can be something that you may want to do on the weekend because you're looking for a hobby, but it can be also something that you're actually looking to about your job, right? Our biggest annual effort that we're running out is State of the Map US. We've started with State of the Map US. Actually, it's the thing that started OpenStreetMap US. We needed a vehicle to run the first stateside conference for OpenStreetMap in 2010 in Atlanta. I've been personally involved since 2012. We've been in 2012 with about 210 people in Portland, Oregon, an amazing, great conference. And we've grown this conference now over the years to about 800 people that came together last year at the UN in June around OpenStreetMap. Our conference is the biggest one globally, actually, being one of the biggest one of the OSM calendar year. We're very strong in international participation as well, which we're very proud of, and which we use as a sort of engine to grow this community, not only in terms of the individual mappers using contributing to the data, but also bringing in organizations, companies, government institutions into the field to really connect around what OpenStreetMap is and what it could be in the future. It really is interesting to think about as OpenStreetMap not only as this one project that we collaborate around, but this bigger idea of how do we collaborate around geospatial data as a society? What are the implications that we have between leading up there much of the data work. 4 minutes. Good. Very committed to like the open data work that we're doing here. For us, it makes a lot of sense to do things with OpenStreetMap in the open because we do not have like an actual like edge, competitive edge, and like doing these things in proprietary way and trying to a level where this type of data is getting very monetized. So this is our architecture here with State of the Map US. One of like the things that we do with State of the Map US is not only like trying to bring people from different fields into the room, but also like up our diversity in terms of like female participation, which is always a little bit sort of a topic within OSM. Like we've been like 10% women like in 2012, like 2015 we managed to like up this to 30%, and there's still ways to go. This is State of the Map US this year. This is going to happen June 25, 26, 24, 25, 26 in Seattle. Our focus this year is going to be on building community, like Rishi said earlier. We are going to take a very strong look at how we can work together within the existing OSM community and people who are coming in right now to build this community of mappers, right? To bring OpenStreetMap to more like communities out there. So how do we talk with people in the universities? How do we talk with people working at Red Cross? For America, right? How do we connect them? How do we like build like a stronger, bigger network around mapping in the United States? This is going to be our focus in Seattle. We'd like to invite you. This is really like OSM is a place where you to participate in, to contribute. Many of the ideas that you've seen, you don't even need to coordinate them with Drishti or me or Cal. You can start to do yourself. This is really the spirit of the project. And in that way, I really invite you to participate here. There's many things we're not doing yet, right? Like there are so many more things you can do. For instance, we're not sending emails to people who have stopped mapping. We're not like offering them targeted documentation. If I saw that you started mapping buildings, and I may have noticed that you have done 15 buildings, maybe I want to send you documentation how to do buildings better and faster, right? We're not doing any of that. We don't have like technical advisory programs where somebody can call somebody and go like, look, I have a question around OpenStreetMap. I want to start mapping with the team. How do I get started, right? There's a plethora of things we're not doing yet, and this is going to be the conference to connect with people around how to build this into a much bigger network of networks in the US. Oh, yeah.
No, I think you covered it great. That's pretty much all, and I think in line with Alex, was a call to action. Very similar is that there's a lot of resources out there, and over the next 3 days, you'll get to hear different avenues that you can reach out to information, or just come up and chat to us personally if you have any questions. But we just want people to go out there and start mapping. And in more ways than not, your information will get used for something really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah.
Does anyone have a few questions, maybe 1 or 2 questions for OpenStreetMap US? Yes.
So what's the best way to stay connected with what you guys are doing? I mean, is it Twitter? Like whatever news is happening in the community. How do people stay connected?
That's a great question. So there's definitely Twitter. OpenStreetMap US has a web page and blog. So anytime there's like a community event happening, we should put up a blog to tell you more about it. There's also, you can reach us on Twitter. There's an email address that you send and it goes out to all the board members, and everyone's very responsive. So it's a waste. Thank you.
All right, good morning. My name is Sam Thurman. I'm working with George Mason University, and I'd like to introduce a project that we're currently conducting here between different universities in order to assess maps and emotion, mapping emotion. And in order to do that, we have a fabulous team of Annika Poplin from Iowa State, and Sylvia Loeffler, also from Ireland, Dublin, Ireland, in order to use those 3 days to find out a little bit more about why do people actually contribute to OpenStreetMap and why do they actually help and volunteer their time to actually contribute to the OpenStreet database. So are people happy, unhappy, and I'd like to get a better idea, because what we often do when we talk about geography and geoinformatics, we look at points, lines, and polygons, and those are easy to map. We can pretty much also confirm the accuracy with these points and lines and geometries for map. But especially when we talk about volunteer geographic information, it's very difficult to understand why do people contribute information. And so I know when I give my students the task to digitize, when I tell them, let's go out and digitize some data from geographic maps and some validation rights, they usually get bored after like 10 clicks. And so we're talking right now about an initiative that actually has more than how many segments? I don't know, 150, or even more than that. You know, tons of contributions, and that's interesting. That's an interesting development. And the idea is, how can we make it also sustainable, so that people are keeping contributing data to these efforts. So what we're looking at right now is kind of a map-off competition between GW and George Mason to basically get our students to contribute to the database over a certain project. At this particular time, the scoreboard is 1-1. So we had two met-offs that basically was listed in different locations. And we have set time, we have set areas we're working on, and then we're comparing like who digitized the most points, lines, polygons, or some other geometries. And the last time we had that, we came prepared. The first time GW was prepared, it was only in 2 out of 3 categories. Last time we just basically looked away and they take kind of technical issues. I don't believe that. So why do people participate? We have over 120 students that come in from all over the university, different departments. They get excited about this, and so they even bring children. And the whole community actually comes in. Last time we had people from the community come in. That's something that's not very often happening. And obviously, there's free pizza, there's soda, there's camaraderie. So this is the current advertisement for Friday's hackathon that's going to happen at George Mason. And our student organization, that actually there is a new student organization that has been basically founded just a few weeks ago. It's the Mason members, and so they're actually taking on some of these material tasks in the advertising, and it's a student effort at this point. So right now there's free food, fun time, and there's obviously talking about power of volunteering and contributing, and all that, and get students to participate and create some sense of community. So the question becomes, how can we make that sustainable? That it's not a fluke. That's 2 years, 3 year shelf life. And so right now what we're seeing, if we look at data that was collected by Martin just recently, there have been over 1,000 projects that people have worked on in Mapathons. They helped over 20,000 contributors that helped 120 million edits and more. And we pretty much can analyze. We can look at the logs. To digitize, how long they're digitized, we know the user ID, and we could even want to potentially we have an email address, some contact them and tell them, well, you can digitize for about 5 weeks. But so we're pretty good at analyzing these things, but again, the remaining question is like, why do people and why do they contribute, and which emotions are associated with these kind of activities. And so we brought in collaborators that look at it from mapping spaces, places. So we'll talk about 2 projects that we are working on and comments to the side, and then at the end invite you to participate in our wonderful questionnaire on how we actually feel listening.
So thinking about emotions has been also a topic in photography, so called or referred to as emotional photography. And using maps in research, I try to kind of summarize the main topics and what moves, so to say, research and photographers and study maps and emotions. And maps have been used to try to understand emotions. So this is one of the research areas. And then some researchers will try to map emotions. So we how can we map anxiety? And can we map anxiety, other emotions? How can we visualize them on a map? Is the next area of research. And then also, there are some that are asking questions. Can maps as such evoke emotions? Can we just looking at maps feeling certain emotions, and what would they be? And trying to, on one hand, map those emotions, there is also some research in the area of measuring the emotions. As, of course, emotion is something that is very difficult to maybe even express and find a word for a particular emotion. But on the other hand, it's also a question, can we kind of not only qualify but also quantify those emotions? And then here two researchers, one from 75, he was just looking at the faces and figured out that we would have 6 basic emotions in the way we express those emotions on our face that are visible. And the other researchers, the more recent, 2013-14, trying to look into the body and the body senses, because we feel those emotions through the whole body. We don't just express emotions in our face, but we feel the emotions, and how can we measure those emotions changing our body state, so to say. So here, being geographers, we usually, as Sven already said, you would be looking into points and lines and polygons and putting all those on a map. And that's how we see objects. We see them as, in geography and GIS, it's how we put things on a map, as in those forms. And that's what we call, it's something that is tangible. We can see a chair and we can model a chair. We can visualize a chair. But then there is a level of a space or place that we map but we usually don't see. So it would be, or we would like to map those things that we don't see. For example, there is a strange smell. Did you notice it? No, I'm just joking. But smell would be something. There will be an emotion that we feel at a certain place, but it's not visible. It is intangible. So, can you see something that might be visible on the picture? Anybody? Yes, trees are objects. That's good. There is something else that messes up maybe with your visual.
Elephant.
Do you see the? Yeah, there is a giraffe. Yeah. That's why the picture is there, right? So this is the similarities with emotions and feelings. They're there, and sometimes you really feel them and notice them, and sometimes they're just part of maybe this place or space. So there has been some research related to that. I was especially motivated by the research done by Professor Klinke. She was mapping pain and pleasure, so using paper maps. Anyway, tell you a little bit about our project. Maybe one, power places. So we said there are places that feel good, or at which you feel relaxed, you feel recharged, you go there to feel recharged, basically, to feel good. And we call them power places. And in our experiments, we ask people to think about those places. Are there any in your neighborhood where you would go and feel good and recharged? And we ask them to, first of all, think about those places, describe them with keywords, and also describe the emotions they feel at those places. And in our pilot study, the participants would say, but we don't know words for emotions, so we don't know if this particular word that we use describes emotions. So what we ended up in the bigger study was that we took a list of emotions provided by Rosenberg in his book Nonviolent Communication. And so for those that didn't know how to express themselves and how to describe their emotions, we said, hey, here is a list, and maybe this list can help you to find the proper emotions. We were working with students. I had some great help. My research assistants were leading the project. We were working with a big map. We had a questionnaire, and at the end, we basically collected 205 power places. This is Hamburg in Germany, where I used to work. And about 900 descriptions of those places. So description could be like, it is a lot of green there, it's green grass, or I see a church, there is a nice bench over there, and about 850 words for emotions. And so guess what? So we said we would like to see this in GIS. And the first thing we could do, it was easy, of course, was to put the points into GIS. What we usually do, right? My background is in GIS, Geoinformation Science, which seems to be easy. Now, how can we put these emotions on a map? So this is something that is, how could we visualize those emotions? How could we express them? That's what we are still working on. And for that, to do that was some field work was necessary because I wanted to understand what kind of places are these. Basically, if I see them on a map, I cannot really understand what would people feel in that places. And even though I have the attributes as words in a GIS, I would not really be able to understand if I don't have the experience. So this would be just one of those places. This is my equipment. I'm filming those places now, taking pictures, extra field work to understand the place itself. So basically, doing this research, also looking into is there somebody else doing this kind of research as well. There are some publications. Just recent, remember this, we were doing this starting 2008, 9, and then more serious 13, 14. So yes, you know that the idea that people don't, of course, think in latitude and longitude. They don't think the way they perceive places are very personal. They're very experiential, and so there are also, in a way, the way they express themselves, vague, and sometimes they use different hierarchies than we would expect if we want to put those places on a map. So there is some very interesting research going on that we would like to look into, understanding the places from the emotional perspective. It's ongoing research. And as ongoing research, here I come with a few research topics. First of all, it's just to start understanding what else beside the objects makes and define this place. And what are those intangible characteristics of a place that might be important, and how can we identify them and express them. Then the second one deals with representation. So can we map them? How can we map them and put them on the maps, and what would be the visualization? How can we formalize formalize them in order to have a system in a GIS. And of course, then we are dealing with uncertainties, which is, one is spatial, and when I say spatial uncertainty, I mean, if somebody tells me my power place is close to the river and close to a bench, and I go to this place and I see two benches, then this is the spatial uncertainty. I'm not quite sure which place is exactly the power place the person is thinking about. And maybe this place is not just one point, and maybe it's not just exact polygon, so how can I deal with this uncertainty? And the other one is descriptive. If I describe my emotions, what is exactly the meaning and how can I actually visualize that and deal with subjectivity of a certain meaning for a person versus the other person's how do they perceive it. So this is the research framework, and here we also, I forgot to say, there is no research in Mapathons and emotions, and so not that we know. So this is one motivation why we're doing. So we would like to do some more follow-up research on that. And then the other one is continue working on place and the census, and Sylvia will present her research project and also show you, or actually explain what we are going to do here.
So I just made a map sheet with a map from a visual artist based in the geography department. I have conducted two long-term projects on mapping and emotions. The first one was my PhD work, and it was called Mapping the Blind Spots. And basically, I looked at the city of Dublin. I'm based in Dublin. I'm Dublin-based artist. I looked at the city of Dublin and I looked at the walls of a certain area and how it has been vandalized. And I was very interested in emotions that are termed ugly feelings. So ugly feelings is boredom, irritation, anything that's not transformative. And so I was creating an ugly feeling map of Dublin with graffiti artists that try to improve those ugly feelings. And that was the first project from 2006 to 2010. I'm currently working on a postdoctoral project for 2 years in the Leary Harbour. Leary is a very small place outside Dublin City, about 25 minutes like if you're on a train, like a Margaret, we have a dart, so different letter. You can see a map here. It's actually been changed around. I don't know why. I didn't have to write the other way. It's okay, because I'm interested in mapping and in the errors of mapping and also the gaps and everything that creates a narrative that's not tangible in ways that we go, oh, here we go from A to B, we know exactly what we're doing. I'm really interested in if we don't know what we're doing. So I'm based in this harbour place in an old Coast Guard station. These are the 14 locations, and I'm creating an artist book with the people, the residents, and with the workers of the locations. And I have an access to the ferry terminal archives. They're all obsolete maps. So I ask people the years in terms of their timeline, how would they relate to the place, and I bring in the maps, and they bring in their photographs. They write their own narrative around the maps, and so what has been obsolete becomes useful then in terms of how do we remember. A lot of my work is based on space-time intersections and memory, and it would be very influenced also with like David Lowenthal when he talks about nostalgia, that returned to nostalgia now as an industry, but nostalgia is also relief to melancholia. So how do we map the past and how it has brought us to where we are today? And so this kind of discrepancy between like, this is happening. I mean, if we go back to this map, This was 1983, and it was the hydrographic map of the Irish lights, which they regulate all the lighthouses in Ireland. And this map was extremely, it was a milestone in their history of how they conducted the mapping of the light levels and the navigation services to come to Ireland. Now this map is totally obsolete, but I use it for every single book. And so when people see it first, they go, well, it's kind of like it's very graphical. But it is empty, so how to fill in these empty spaces, I'm interested in that. For today, in the back, there's a table, and you can hopefully feel a little bit inspired to, I know you're going to be doing a lot of mapping with computers, but it would be really interesting to do something in terms of the basics of drawing a map. So there are several tasks to be set. The first one is this mental map. And I'm really interested in your experience of mapping. How would you draw a mental map? How did you come here? And if I say how did you come here, how did you feel about it? What did you experience? So I would be really grateful if you could, at some stage of your day, make your way down to the table and just draw that. That would be great. The second side, it's 2 pages like on flyers. The second one will show you 3 postcards. The first postcard here is about sense experiences in terms, again, like, how do you write them? The mental map is how to draw, but also if you don't feel comfortable with drawing, maybe it's better to write. So how do you describe your experience? What happens? How would you, whoever you want to address with this? So that's the first card. The second postcard is a definition of sounds and smells. If we map, I was very struck by what Alex and Drishti were talking about in terms of disaster responses, that there's an element of care in it, but it's also a care of our environment. Starts with ourselves, with our own body. So we know we care to get to the venue, but also we care about everything else. We hear, we see, we smell. What if it's a multi-sensory experience? And how do we map multi-sensory experience? And the last card there, it's about color. And I've done this several times. People who are colorblind always tend to go for red and green, which is quite an interesting thing. So again, in terms of color, it would be really a lovely thing if you could reflect on what color how would you translate your experience of coming here? What color would you give it? And what does the color mean to you? Because if we map a place, there are so many other things attached to it. Like, so it's the sense of self, but it's also how can we take it in further in a way of experiencing what things mean to us. That's me, Sally.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up quickly. So we really would like you to participate in these studies. One subject study, we try to plan your journey here, which I think would be awesome. We don't have to think about it in points, lines, and polygons, just write down your experiences, like Sophia said. It's going to be a completely different mapping exercise as we are used to as geographers. And so we're really looking forward to see what you have to say or to draw on paper. And we're looking forward to getting mail. We'd like to have you fill out a postcard and send you a letter from the conference. And so we'd like to hear from you. We also place an online questionnaire on our website, aagmapathon.org, where we have 4 short pages that are going to be asking you questions about how we feel right now. I hope everyone's happy. I initially thought about opening a song on this day. So we're going to ask you to answer a few questions and also why you met and what your experiences were and all that. It's going to be 4 short pages and they can be linked directly from our website, aagmapathon.org. And we look forward to hearing from you because I think you'll be supporting a great project that will help us to actually, again, make many efforts within the OpenStreetMap community very sustainable and getting more people involved in this effort. So with that, thank you very much.
I'll introduce Mikkel when we get set up, but just really quick, raise your hand if you never mapped before at OpenStreetMap. Just want to, okay, great. So it seems like we've got half new mappers, but if you're already an advanced mapper, you can start mapping now. Mapping is very easy, and you could multitask. So if you want to get started right now, you could just go to aagmapathon.org, and we have 3 projects already set up and good to go. But yeah, really quick, I don't know anyone else who started thinking about OpenStreetMap and crowdsourced mapping, how could it be applied to humanitarian needs other than Mikkel Marin. He's a co-founder of the humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, and he just seems to be everywhere at once. I have the privilege of working with him. In my office, the humanitarian information unit on our MapGive initiative, I really feel he supercharged that and took it to the next level. And even now, he's involved and supporting many of the initiatives. And many of you guys may hear of many different organizations, in addition to MapGive, such as Missing Maps and Youth Mappers and Mapping for Resilience. And I can't think of anyone else better to explain everything other than Mikkel. So I look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Hello, everybody. Hi. Talking about OpenStreetMap, which, as you know, is a free and open map of the entire world that anyone can edit, anyone can contribute to, and that anyone can use. It baffles me that it works at all. How the heck does a project like this, which essentially has no one in control besides the passion of the people who are contributing to it, how are we here now, today, hosted at the AAG? It's pretty amazing. It was pretty interesting to hear the last presentation, because when OpenStreetMap started back in 2004 in London, it came out of the open source hacker and arts community, which was very borderline there. There's a really active dorkbot meetup, and I first met Steve Coast properly at like a kind of a locative arts hacker session up at the University of Nottingham. I was also attended by Kristen Nold, who is famous for doing biomapping. He actually hooked up galvanic skin response sensors to people with GPS. It's like lie detector, basically. Had them walk around the city, recorded their location and like their excitement level, and then made maps of like stress. And you could see like people walking in the park were more at ease, and people crossing streets were more excited. So I'm very interested to see, well, if anyone has like fitness, like a fitness tracker monitor while you're doing mapping today, like maybe turn it on and see like, which squares really like get you revved up and where you kind of like get into that zone, that ease of like mapping lots and lots of cool things. Yeah, it was back in 2004. I think Al White, which Alex mentioned, was 2006. And it was literally like a couple dozen people were like, let's map the Al White. That's all it took. And it was kind of a test. There was this idea, but never actually say, like, is this actually going to work? Can we actually map the entire world this way? And over a weekend, mapped every road. Now, like, there was no satellite imagery to trace back then. It was all GPS units and people talking into voice recorders to themselves. You often look a little bit crazy when you do that. But very passionate. And it's a group of people just came together to do it. And that's still like the essence of what makes it work, but of course things have changed a lot. And what I wanted to try to get into in this talk was, well, not answer the question of how the heck does OpenStreetMap work, but provide a few like guideposts to find our way. And if anyone here does research more on like the ethnographic or anthropological side of things, I think the OpenStreetMap community is very under-researched in that regard. There's a lot of interesting things to dig into and how this community actually comes together to do what it does. So we say people before data. The data is amazing, but if everyone went away from OpenStreetMap tomorrow, the data would quickly become unamazing because the world will change and we'll have new needs. But in it's driven by people who really, really care about map. And what's been amazing is over the years, Tristan Red Cross, Tom's at the State Department, and people who are part of big institutions who are investing time and effort into this project. So wanted to explore these institutions. And I can skip over these slides because we have a great intro. We do a lot of this, which we'll do today, taking imagery and turning it into map data. There's also, if you get a chance over the next few days to go out and walk around San Francisco with your paper with your phone and map data, this is an amazing way to explore a city. And mappers are absolutely everywhere. Just to highlight the point, this is Camara, it's a song that I wrote in Kenya, I've done a lot of work there with map data. And there are people everywhere, not just only in emergencies, but in places which are facing emergencies every day. But they're mapping in the exact same database. The data is not isolated, and because the data is not isolated, you immediately become part of a community. So you have someone who's a slum dweller who's editing the very same database that we're editing in a ballroom in San Francisco. I think there's something kind of magical about that. We'll be using tools like this, the hot task manager. And I think OpenStreetMap is important because as the world is changing so fast, because this is Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, this is a primary city in Tanzania, but secondary cities are growing incredibly fast as we heard in the last session. And I think this is the only way we're going to be able to keep up if we engage everybody in the process of making maps, especially people who are based there. So this was humanitarian OpenStreetMap team has been mapping over the past year or so. The project's wrapped up, and they've mapped the city of 2-3 million people, which is largely informal, largely just growing, unplanned. So every structure, every road, and they're facing big challenges, of course. And this is a couple pictures from Kathmandu, from Nepal. That's Kathmandu Living Labs operations center during the Nepal earthquake. They were outside, but they were still mapping, and they're quite unique because they're a local entity. They really understand. They have local connections in communities with government, local actors, but they also have connections to the global network, to institutions which were responding to the Nepal disaster. So they led the response, and that's quite an amazing thing to have that kind of. Made it much more effective. So the question that comes up a lot is, like, OpenStreetMap's amazing, but how do I talk to OpenStreetMap? Someone asked before, how do I hear about what's going on in OpenStreetMap? US. Now, there's not one front door, there's many front doors, I think is kind of the upshot. But the OpenStreetMap Foundation, which is the most official entity that is behind the OpenStreetMap project, this is the world headquarters of the OpenStreetMap Foundation. It's a mailing address of one of the original board members. OpenStreetMap Foundation is a virtual organization. We don't have offices. It's all volunteer right now. And it's very minimal. It's a registered company because you sometimes need to have registered companies. This was the thinking at the start. Remember, it started out of like open source software hackers and artists, and so it's very anarchic. But you need to have some entity to own servers and to own a domain and to own the license. Someone has to be the license holder. There's a conference, State of the Map, the global conference, which the OpenStreetMap Foundation runs. So there was a need to have a legal entity, but it stayed very minimal. Say the most, as far as like, we often make the comparison between OpenStreetMap and Wikipedia, and the Wikimedia Foundation is quite a substantial organization. And they have different requirements because they're much more user-facing, they're much more facing the public. Everyone goes to Wikipedia's website to get information. Not the same thing with OpenStreetMap. Data is more distributed to more places. So there hasn't been a need to organize in that way. We'd say very little. But it's not the only entity that is involved in OpenStreetMap governance. Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team was founded to be kind of the intersection between OpenStreetMap and humanitarian responders and organizations working in disaster preparedness. And it's an official, it's a nonprofit, it's registered here in the US. It works, has official relationships, takes contracts, it's a lot more active organization than the OpenStreetMap Foundation. Did that work in DAR, but in many other places. Stephen Johnson, who's talking next, has done work with HOD, and for that need to work, especially to work with folks like USAID or with the State Department, you really need to have a more engaged and active organization. Especially if you want to send people places. That was kind of the original impetus to starting HOD. We didn't want to just sit and map Haiti. We wanted to go to Haiti, to work with Haitians, to map with them. And there are local chapters. There are many local chapters. Tristy and Alex talked a lot about OpenStreetMap US. And there are local chapters all over the world in various forms. Some of them are quite formal and active, like OpenStreetMap US, and some of them are just people who meet regularly, and there may not be a legal entity. But the idea is to help. Every place is so different, and there's different needs and challenges, and different emotional motivations for getting involved with a project like OpenStreetMap. So local chapters help to organize things, and there is an ability to have an official legal relationship with the main foundation. So as Tom said, I had a chance last year to look at what does OpenStreetMap look like from the government's perspective. And I can't imagine an institution that is more different than a project that started as a bunch of open source hackers and artists in the State Department. And so it's wonderful, I was a wonderful opportunity to be a presidential innovation fellow in the geographer's office, working in the humanitarian information unit on MapGID, to really explore what does it mean for an entity like the State Department to get involved with this project. And all the hard work had been done already by Josh Campbell and by the other folks in AAG before I came on, convincing the right people that this is a good idea. And I think it's an amazing thing because of the amazing connections which I saw over the year. For instance, I had very little to do with this, but this early on during the Ebola response, the Jerusalem consulate organized a mapathon with an NGO called Suktel in Ramallah, Palestine, with students. And they mapped for Ebola. And they helped create data for maps like the Red Cross map on the left. And these are two places which seem to exist in totally different universes, but yet they have a relationship and a connection. And high school students in Ramallah feel just as much an urge to contribute to a response like the Ebola response, and do something that's worthwhile, like the OpenStreetMap data was for the Ebola response. And so it's amazing that you have this community where you have such diverse actors plugging in, and I think that's the real power of the State Department getting interested, is that the State Department's everywhere, and there's lots of different relationships that can help do really cool things together. It's actually engaging people together with others to solve problems. And that's an amazing diplomacy. And I already knew this, but discovered very quickly the State Department was not the only entity in the US government or in Washington, D.C. involved in OpenStreetMap. I knew a lot of these folks before, but we started over the course of the year, it had been before, working more officially together. So USAID, many offices there, the Geocenter, the TI, OFDA, Peace Corps, the World Bank, Red Cross, and even domestic agencies like the National Park Service and the USGS, National Map Corps, have been working in some ways, either contributing to OpenStreetMap or using software which has been developed around OpenStreetMap. And so we started to just get together and do stuff together. We were already all working on projects that resulted in data going into the same database. Well, can we also work in collaborate together on other levels. One of the first manifestations of this was a Mapathon at the White House, which was the first one this last year, and it was a lot of fun. Many people were there, and it was unique because there's a lot of events at the White House, but they're not always places where you actually do something. It's very one-way communications and a lot of networking, but actually produce map data felt very powerful. It was a great demonstration of how this stuff actually works in those halls. And these kind of collaborations, we can take advantage, we can benefit from each other's work. So this is a screenshot which is a lot better if you look it on your laptop. Missing Maps, which was started by the Red Cross and MSF and others, relaunched the website recently with individual user statistics and leaderboards. And I think for the AAG Mapathon, we're using their stats site in order to track what's happening. So every edit will have an AAG Mapathon tag, as well as a maps tag, and we'll be able to check who's top mapper. We'll be able to see like how many miles of roads or how many buildings you've edited. You can put badges, and because this is all in the commons and part of the OpenStreetMap infrastructure, we can collaborate and use it. We took it a formal step further with policy work under the Open Government Partnership Plan, which is an international agreement which 70, 80 countries have signed up to, including the US. We just revised the National Action Plan. The National Action Plan includes a commitment to collaborate with citizen and global cartographers in open mapping. So at the high level policy for open government, the kind of work that we're doing here today is a commitment, it's a priority. So that's going to have, I think, benefits in the next years to come. And I think we're seeing a lot of opportunity with the Sustainable Development Goals, both for OpenStreetMap data to be relevant for indicators under various goals, but also as a model for how there's a lot of data which is going to be generated for SDGs needs to be organized. It's a real challenge to collaborate and cooperate and put it together into a form that's useful. I think the way that OpenStreetMap has organized itself or disorganized itself over the years has a lot to share for the global goals. There are companies that are involved with OpenStreetMap. I joined one in October in Mapathons. And just to pick out the companies which are been involved with the AAG Mapathon, there's many. Mapathons is here, Mapathon is here, Stamen is here, and there's many, many more which work with OpenStreetMap data and in various ways contribute to the community. And we can collaborate and work together on things beyond just using the data. We all have shared interests in improving in the core infrastructure of OpenStreetMap, the servers and the software which runs the project, making sure that's stable, make sure it's growing to scale with the growth of the community. We're all very interested in a quality analysis tool, so you understand better the state of OpenStreetMap data, where it's good quality, where there's a need for improvement, so we can better focus mapping efforts. And we're all very interested in helping develop the community and spend a lot of time at events like this and outreach and helping to just grow more mappers. And finally, this is why it's great to be here. There's an active and growing research and education community in OpenStreetMap. These are our academic partners, hosts for the AAG Mapathon, and they're very active in pulling this together. There's a lot of great sessions over the next few days showing research that has been based in OpenStreetMap. I'm very excited about the session tomorrow at 10 a.m. on understanding OpenStreetMap, which will highlight some of the tools and approaches to actually figuring out what's going on in this massive database. And within OpenStreetMap and within HOT, there's a real openness and willingness to work with researchers. It's great at, not only just in this Mapathon, but if you search for OpenStreetMap, just in the massive AAG schedule, you'll see other sessions talking about OpenStreetMap as well. And what I think the position that OpenStreetMap takes, that Hot takes, is that this is a community that's ready to actively engage with researchers. And so Hot has put together, led by Robertson, and principles for academic partnerships, which basically is get to know us, get in touch with us, tell us what you want to do, let us help. We have a lot of ideas. There's a lot, if you need questions, we have a lot of questions about OpenStreetMap, and share your findings back. OpenStreetMap is, I think, a place where the best research can happen when the researcher is actively part of the community, while at the same time maintaining the separation they need to, but it's worth challenging that, because really great stuff has been developing out of research relationships. And finally, mappers love OpenStreetMap, students love OpenStreetMap. This has been OpenStreetMap is increasingly a part of the classroom. So starting with GW and now spreading, we've been involved with starting up TeachOSM to gather curriculum and materials for teachers to bring, and educators to bring OpenStreetMap in the classroom. And recently launched Youth Mappers, the SAID, and Texas Tech and West Virginia University, and GW as well, to help students organize themselves into groups that are passionate about doing things like what we're doing today. So that's it from me. We're hosting a happy hour tomorrow at Mapathons at 5:30. So you are all invited, and invite your friends. Please come and drink beers and talk maps. This is very much a throwback to the original days of OpenStreetMap, where a lot of things happened in pubs around London. And that's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Mikkel. Yeah, OpenStreetMap and education, it just makes so much sense to me. When I was studying my master's, I'd never even heard of OpenStreetMap until I Googled it. But yes, Stephen Johnson is going to talk all about TeachOSM. My office is literally a block away from George Washington University Geography Department, which is great. So Stephen Johnson has been mapping for many years now. He's also an organizer of Mapping DC. So they actually go out on the street and map the local community in Washington, DC. So if you're an OpenStreetMap person, you get major street cred if you're out in the field. So with that, I'll introduce Stephen Johnson.
Good morning. I liked it when the previous presenter set me up for my presentation. This is like the third time in a row that I've given a presentation and that's happened. And I'm always thankful when that happens. Mikkel had an interesting slide in there. It had, what did it say, people before data, which I think is kind of the launching point for TeachOSM. And TeachOSM, the gist of TeachOSM is to incorporate OpenStreetMap into the classroom. We think it's such a great little vehicle. It really lowers the cost of putting GIS and actual digital learning into the classroom. I think it's a great thing. So what I want to talk about is a little bit about what TeachOSM is. Kel just flashed a slide, but I want to talk a little bit more about it, why I think we need it, a couple project highlights, and a few reasons why I think OSM is a perfect tool for teaching geography. I have cut the obligatory what is TeachOSM series of slides from this because I think if you've sat through most of these presentations and you're here already, you've done your background homework and you've done your reading, you've had this great introduction from all the previous speakers, so I don't need to talk too much about that. But TeachOSM, what is it? It's a resource for educators, instructors, and for instruction of all kinds. Basically, why do we need it? We have like a lot of we have a lot of resources out there to teach people how to map in OpenStreetMap already, so why do we need this? The inverse of that situation is how can we introduce geography to people, to students? And we can teach them how to map, but how do we use that to teach them the basics of geographic thinking, place, space, location, wayfinding, navigation, those sorts of things. And if you've been out on a foot survey, if you've done, got your field papers out and actually done a survey, you know that it's a little bit different. You're actually engaging with geography. So we're using OpenStreetMap to teach about geography and to provide resources for people who want to incorporate OpenStreetMap into the classroom and use it to develop different methods of spatial thinking. And we've got a growing set of resources that we've got. There's mostly case studies at this point that we're offering on TeachOSM. The intent is to provide certain modules and pieces of curricula that can be embedded into other geographic ways of thinking and other geographic lessons. And those resources to help educators evaluate contributions to resource, that goes into data quality and being able to assess according to a rubric. It's more than just how to map. What we're trying to do is provide a broad range of resources for traditional classroom K-12, as well as community colleges and four-year institutions, but also vocational learning, where it's kind of post-college, post-academy learning, as well as accommodate things like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H clubs, and things like that. These are all of the tools to engage and interpret the landscape, but more importantly, to develop that sort of sense of community and camaraderie that comes with mapping, and literally to encourage more mappers to engage with the project. We have a website. This is what we've done so far. We have a website. We have the repository of case studies that we put up there. We have done a number of half-day workshops specifically geared towards educators, and it teaches them how to map and then provides them with the extra infrastructure that they need to continue to sustain and to stand up mapping projects as they go. A lot of what we do is outreach to educators and to youth leaders, and we are establishing a series of micro-credentials, geo-badges, to encourage more independent learning as well. So for those educators, basic map editing skills, how to manage student accounts, which is a big deal, a non-trivial thing, and organizing and mapping a mapping event. We spend a lot of time teaching people how to map, but less time teaching people how to organize an event and manage it and assign blocks of work. For students, we offer a couple different things. It's the basic how to map instructions as well, but offer those, trying to channel student learning engagements into those service learning opportunities, humanitarian OpenStreetMap, MapGive, Missing Maps, DC Great Streets. We've had a little collaboration with them over the years. But the idea is to cultivate geospatial literacy through these guided mapping projects. I talked a little bit, I mentioned geo-badges. This is, we just kicked this off last fall. We've deployed 2 badges so far, just a basic OpenStreetMap editor badge and an OpenStreetMap organizer badge. The point of this is to provide some sort of credentials outside of the academy for enterprising mappers who want to go through a course and go through the motions and achieve these badges. And they can, some of them are more meaningful than others. A lot of badges sometimes tend to be event badges. We're trying to make these more meaningful in the sense that you actually have to do some active project-based learning in order to obtain this. Please check us out on geobadges.org. I want to highlight a little project that we did a couple of years ago, and I want to credit Andrew Weissman here for ginning this project up, but Andrew, through by dint of his knowledge of his neighborhood, hooked us up with this neighborhood group who was doing this street survey with these kids on Georgia Avenue in Washington, D.C. And the kids went out and mapped all this stuff, you know, using 3-ring binders, but they went back out again and just recorded everything on field papers. And I don't know how many kids we had in this thing, 15 kids, I'm guessing, but we added over 270 objects, 270 good objects to the map on Georgia Avenue. And it was quite amazing to see just, you know, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids just tearing it up on the street map. So it was a lot of fun for them, and it's a lot of fun for us. Here's another screenshot of the Open Street Map Tasking Manager. I'll see if it's for now, but here's another shot of just all of the stuff added by the kids on the OpenStreetMap. I also want to highlight there's a lot that's going on in terms of education in other countries. The reference model for this is the humanitarian OpenStreetMap team in Jakarta, Indonesia. They have a program there where they have, again, it has a big disaster preparedness and a disaster recovery focus. But because Indonesia, of course, is very, you know, it's very spread out across multiple islands and everything's very decentralized. They are going to universities, and they have what they call a university roadshow, where they're going to universities and with the help and collaboration of different advisors and professors at these universities, they're training students there to become mappers of their provinces and hometowns and places there. And the effect has been tremendous. Well, the slide needs a little bit of updating because I think they're in the 5th year of the program now, and there's well over 3,000 people that have been trained. So there's well over 3,000 new mappers in Indonesia. And they're not just located in Java either, they're in Sumatra and Sulawesi and Kalimantan as well. My program here. I want to present, here's why I think OpenStreetMap makes such a compelling, it's so compelling for using in the classroom. First and foremost, if you are out on the street engaged in mapping with field papers, you will notice that there are a lot of geographic features that just pop up, and the challenge is the challenge is to say which ones you're not going to map rather than the ones that you are going to map. And I like to think of this as geography at 1-to-1 scale, because you are, you know, the map in that sense really is the territory, and you do have a direct experience of geography. And I think for young students, that's an invaluable experience for them to kind of walk down the street with a piece of paper and have to annotate it with the geographic features that they see. And they realize that, you know, then everything becomes, you know, has a geographic component to it, which is really valuable. I think also the geographic context provides a lot of meaning and background to other social and historical events that takes place. You know, as geographers, you grow up and you understand things happen at different places at different times because of geographic processes that are enabled. And by contributing to OpenStreetMap, you kind of you get a sense of how those things fell into place and why they fell into place and what was there before and what, you know, what comes after. I think we've talked about this a lot. OpenStreetMap supports collaborative learning. We've seen the word collaboration 150 times in the slides, but it is true. And I think the cool thing about this is that there's a lot of collaboration on a lot of levels. And Mikkel, in one of his slides, had a point about this is an opportunity for governments to collaborate with their citizens and have a two-way conversation. And I think the cool thing about OpenStreetMap is it facilitates that two-way conversation between the mappers and whatever they're mapping, whoever has a compelling interest in that, whether it's a municipal government, state government, or whether it's a school board or a cycling club or whatever. But it does help to give visibility to community landmarks, to develop a sense of community, to develop a sense of place, and this is what the folks from George Mason were talking about in mapping emotions. It's like, how do you put a value on that street tree that's really intrinsically valuable to your neighborhood, but may not have, you know, value across town. But it certainly has, it has some. OpenStreetMap provides a lot of opportunities for service-based learning. We've been through this a couple hundred times here, but we have, you know, humanitarian OpenStreetMap. One little project that I really like to call attention to, it seems to be really popular with kids, is called Map Roulette. Map Roulette is this awesome little data quality tool that if you maproulette.org, you can try it and see if that's not it. But it presents you with an opportunity to correct something that's wrong on the OpenStreetMap database, and you correct it, and then you move on to the next one. And where it's been introduced before with children, they eat them like potato chips. So it's really fun to see. But I think the point here is that kids really want a meaningful way to engage. They don't really want dumbed down work, right? They really want to do cool stuff just like everybody else. So this is an opportunity where they can, you know, where you can engage students on meaningful stuff and have them do things that really have impact. OpenStreetMap supports self-directed learning. I think you can do as much as you want with OpenStreetMap if you're a real you know, serial learner, a real self-starter, a real autodidact. You can really make hay with OpenStreetMap and do a lot of really interesting things with it. It encourages that kind of collaboration and teamwork because you are working with other people and you can kind of organize things as you see fit. And it's wide open, that, you know, so that anybody can do anything with it as long as you follow the rules and stick within the lines. Here's the big one that's, I guess it's probably not apparent, but I talk with school resource people occasionally, and they tell me that they're so strapped for, you know, they can't afford software or anything like that. Well, the beauty of OpenStreetMap, of course, is it requires no special equipment. You just need a browser, basically, and you can get started, you can sign up. And there's no fees, no licensing, no paywalls, all open source. I just put together a few sample ideas for projects here, conducting a street survey, which I think is invaluable, conducting one in your neighborhood, which I think is a great way to get started with OpenStreetMap, and everybody should do it at least twice, 3 times. Mapping for disaster relief, there's always those. Open Historical Map, which is a sister project to OpenStreetMap, is a great place. We're seeing a little bit more activity on that. We've seen starting Student Mapping Society. I guess Sven noted that George Mason just started theirs. We're seeing more of those across a lot of other 4-year institutions primarily. So where do you get started? We have a very low volume mailing list, TeachOSM mailing list. If you're interested in this, please subscribe to that. Say hey. If you want, you can send an inquiry to info@teachosm, and somebody will reply to you. And I would encourage you, if you have conducted if you've conducted mapping projects before, please get in contact with me. I'd love to feature your case study up on the TeachOSM website. And please help us refine our materials. So that's it. Tom, do we have a transition or set?
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Steven, Ron.
Hello, Ron.
You want to make some comments about the project been working with Oregon on Central Michigan in particular?
Oh,
that was pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. You can meet you in person, Ron. So Ron and I had a little loose collaboration around St. Lucia. I guess about a month ago held their first national mapathon, and I don't know what you know about St. Lucia. It's a very small country, less than 200,000 people out in the Eastern Caribbean. I was I had the good fortune of training a lot of people in the St. Lucian government last June. And then we suggested at the time that they conduct a Map for St. Lucia Day. And we went back and they went off and did their thing. And then months later we get a call and said, the Map for St. Lucia Day is on. And will you come down and help facilitate? And it was a really big deal for them, because it was a nationally significant event, but they're wanting to use that event to kick off a whole lot of train-the-trainer types of events where they can go around the island and really push into local communities. So it really dovetails nicely of having people in those localities, in their places, taking responsibility for their mapping data and doing it. So it was a really good example of, well, it's a really good example of one, collaboration and the community coming together, but it was also really kind of a way that Teach OSM could support this activity by helping them to facilitate and provide them with a roadmap and do some of that vocational training. Yes?
I just want to ask, I was very fascinated by this notion that mapping is open to everybody because it was used traditionally as such a colonial instrument of ownership. And I was just wondering, because there's a lot of communities around the world that wouldn't have the notion of a borderline or how we see something as a property zone. Have you come across that kind of?
Yes and no. No, because primarily no, because most of the things that we're trying to map. The question, I guess, is do you come across any kind of disputes where the border is just like invisible or can't be seen, or yeah. Typically in OpenStreetMap, we try to put things on the map that are verifiable on the ground. Now, we have made exceptions for borders and boundaries and things like that, because obviously those are in there. The community has kind of drawn the line with parcel property boundaries because they're a bear to maintain, and it's just, it's overwhelming to maintain those kinds of features in OpenStreetMap. Boundaries, OpenStreetMap is certainly subject to edit words, but most of that's been policed pretty well by the community, and the data working group has been the final arbiter of those disputes where they have happened, and where they haven't happened, it hasn't been a problem. So did I answer your question? Okay. Yeah. Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
Did you see that? Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us for the first session, for the kickoff session of the 3-day Mapathon. Tom and I were thinking about putting a tent here, so we'll basically stay here for the next 3 days, and we're happy to accept your food donations and in order to continue having this event going. I think that's what was a really nice kickoff, showed different aspects that we're trying to cover at this Mapathon. We would like to encourage you to participate in different in our survey and also the mapping activity. We'd also like you to participate and come to the happy hour on Thursday. The directions are actually all across the room on how to find us and basically spend a good time with us. We also would like to encourage you to bring your laptops over the next few days and help us map. We have tables in the back where you can actually do mapping activities, and so that we can actually build a better geodatabase, open geodatabase for everyone. So I think right now we're taking a short break, and we're going to be back here at noon. I think Tom and I need to grab some food also to continue on, and then we have the sports and Michael Goodchild getting the keynote lecture for today, and that's going to be really exciting. So I look forward to seeing you back in a few minutes. Thanks.